Thank you. Blaine Tutton-Wills, Office of Chief Legislative Analyst. Before you today on the agenda is a recommendation from the Rules, Elections, Intergovernment Relations, and Neighborhood Committee report. Recommendation number 1 is designate October 12th of each year as Italian American Heritage Day in the city of Los Angeles to recognize the contributions of Italian Americans to the history and culture of Los Angeles. Number 2, approve the creation of an Indigenous Peoples Day as an official city holiday to be observed on the second Monday of each October and to be recognized no later than 2019 in the 2019 calendar year. Number 3, request the city attorney to prepare and present an ordinance amending the Los Angeles Ad Code to remove all references to Columbus Day as an official holiday and recognizing Indigenous Peoples Day in the administrative code. Number 4, instruct all general managers and department heads upon amendment of the LA Ad Code to include recognition and observance of Indigenous Peoples Day on all relevant city documents, including but not limited to calendars, schedules, and administrative materials. Number 5, instruct the city clerk to prepare and send a letter to the Los Angeles Unified School District Board of Education subsequent to the official council action, indicating that the city will now recognize Indigenous Peoples Day on the second Monday of each October and urge the LAUSD Board to consider taking similar action. Number 6, instruct the city administrative officer to provide a report on the process of implementing an additional city holiday which recognizes the contribution of all the diverse cultures in the city of Los Angeles, including potential names which accurately describe the intent of the council, potential fiscal impacts, and the identification of any issues which may be subject to meet and confer with city unions.
Thank you, Blaine. Okay, Mr. O'Farrell, I'm going to call on you to begin the conversation.
Thank you so
much,
much,
President.
President.
Mr. O'Farrell. Go ahead, Mr. Clerk.
And, Mr. President, amending motions 13C and 13D have been posted, circulated, and submitted and are now before Council for consideration as well.
Thank you. Mr. O'Farrell.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. I really appreciate this moment, and I really appreciate the involvement of the Human Relations Commission, City Attorney's Office, CAO's Office, and CLA's Office, and the participation of hundreds and hundreds of Angelenos across the city over the last 22 months on an initial motion that I introduced in November of 2015 calling for a process in which we could recognize the contributions of Indigenous peoples. Now, that process led to the report that Mr. Sutton-Willis just read, outlining the 6 pieces of instruction from that unanimous committee decision back in June. And that was after the process that I mentioned took place. Los Angeles has the largest Native American population of any city in the United States. Los Angeles has the largest population of any indigenous peoples from other places of any city in the United States. The historical record is unambiguous in terms of the atrocities that Christopher Columbus himself and his men enacted on the Taino native peoples on the island that they called Hispaniola in 1492, and the 3 subsequent trips back to the West Indies, Central America, South America, setting in process a centuries-long genocide unmatched in breadth and scope anywhere in world history. Now, some hundreds years later, the Spanish began exploring the coast of California. The mission system was established in 1769, beginning with San Diego. Within 50 years, 21 missions were established up and down the state, including the mission of San Gabriel. Now, the Tongva and other local tribes, including the Chumash, suffered incredible losses here in Los Angeles. City Hall is built on a village that was once called Yangna, which was a Tongva village. In 1828, a German immigrant sold the land out from under the Tongva and evicted the Tongva inhabitants of this village that had been their home for thousands of years. The mission system was especially harsh in California to erase the cultures and cause incredible destruction and harm for Native peoples up and down the state. So much so that the Tongva and other tribes still have yet to meet their criteria to become a federally recognized tribe. We're talking about the sweep of thousands of years in Los Angeles, not the sweep of 50 years or a dozen years for recent immigrants to the city. We're talking about something much more profound. This process, I think, daylighted a historical wrong that we have an opportunity, a once-in-a-life opportunity, to right. Los Angeles does bold, progressive things. We take bold, progressive action. This is an opportunity for us to not become an asterisk in the historical record, but to take the step that other major cities and states have taken. And I look forward to hearing what the panelists have to say about the process that was engaged in. And I would expect that any other action that we take that was instructed by the Rules Committee back in June follow a similar process. This is no time to discard a process. That serves no one. So I look forward to hearing this report and then moving forward on replacing Columbus Day with Indigenous Peoples Day on the second Monday of October.
Please, please, please. Please, let us have our conversation. Mr. Buscaino.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, many of us here today come with a lot of pride, passion, and emotion, and these feelings come from the human desire to be recognized and to be valued. Indigenous people deserve to be recognized and valued. This is why I support an Indigenous Peoples Day in this great city. I also support the elimination of Columbus Day as an official city holiday, despite the disappointment it brings to my brothers and sisters in the Italian American community. Now, I do so because I believe that the celebration of culture is important. We must learn our history, otherwise we are doomed to repeat it. The contributions and sacrifices of Native people in this country must be acknowledged and discussed. My daughter today is learning about Native American culture in her 5th grade class. Just the other day, I walked into my garage, and my son, 14 years old, has been making his own dream catchers. And what I don't support, however, is replacing the underlying meaning behind a holiday that's important, social and cultural importance to the Italian Americans. America has a proud tradition as an immigrant nation, but it also has a long history of marginalizing those it marks as quote-unquote other. America's other heritage includes suspicion, hostility, abuse, and even death leveled against ethnic groups as they arrived one after another in the waves over the past 2.5 centuries. We've forgotten the depth of prejudice and outright hatred faced by Italian Americans in this country. The type of prejudice and hatred experienced by Italians over 100 years ago has been replayed over and over for all immigrants and members of minority faiths everywhere in every historical period, including our own. This is why I find it ultimately important not to cure one offense with another. We must embrace Los Angeles, not divide it. How can we, on one hand, support the dignity and human rights of people, while on the other hand, replace one group's social inclusiveness for the sake of another? How is that fair and just? My culture, under the direction of my mom and dad, my dad's here right now, taught me the importance of faith, of family, of love, and respect for everyone. And this is what we need to celebrate in our cultures today. I know from you, my colleagues here in this room, that many other cultures, including yours share these same values. We all love our families. We practice our faith, whatever it may be. And we make every attempt to act morally. We come from varying backgrounds and are very diverse. And here in Los Angeles, we've learned to coexist. Los Angeles is the epicenter of cultural diversity. We have illustrated to the world that we can thrive in diversity. Just look at this council. Catholics, Jews, LGBT, Armenian, Korean, African American, Latinos, Latinas, and yes, an Italian. Yet we do not officially celebrate this diversity and give pause to its relevance. The United Nations, and I say the city of Los Angeles is a modeled United Nations. The United Nations was found to promote and encourage respect for human rights and for fundamental freedoms for all without distinction of race, of sex, language, or religion. Member states, including the United States, is one, have pledged to protect and uphold these rights. In 1995, the United Nations declared World Indigenous Peoples Day to be observed on August 9th and call on all governments to observe that date as well. Now, if we decide to eliminate any references to Columbus Day on city books, we would be remiss not to take this opportunity to make history by reflecting on our own history here in Los Angeles and creating a day that commemorates and celebrates the contributions of the original settlers of El Pueblo. The pobladores, they were 44 original settlers and 4 soldiers who founded the city of Los Angeles, California in 1781. And back then, finding the individuals to actually do the work of building and living in a city was a daunting task for the governor at the time, but he amassed a diverse group of people willing to do the work. The cultural mix of people that formed this group of families speaks to our diverse history. They were Spanish, Black, American Indian, Mestizo, and mulatto families, all working together to create a new city. I wonder what they would think of this city 2.5 centuries later. Now let's seize on this opportunity, colleagues. Harness the diversity and beauty of this great city to speak to everyone here, everyone in this great city, that every single one of us is important. All of our individual cultures matter and our shared history matters. Because this is Los Angeles, a unique embodiment of individual expression coupled with the shared people of living in such an amazing and diverse place where all of our dreams can come true. So today, let's live up to that dream, take a leap of faith, and celebrate LA by declaring our own day. To celebrate Los Angeles, unite Los Angeles, embrace LA. I ask for your vote to support vision, not division. Support unity and not retribution or vengeance. Support our history and diversity and not replace one group with another. Our role here as leaders and decision makers is to make tough calls that don't always make everyone happy, but we believe will propel our city forward by reflecting the vision of a world-class city. And I believe my proposal, the amendment before you, does that today. Let's declare Indigenous Peoples Day on the date that has been recognized by the United Nations, because we are a city of United Nations, and that's commemorated by our own school district. And let's capture this opportunity to write our own history right here, right now. Let's unite, let's reflect, and let's make history. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Buscaino. Mr. Cedillo. Mr. Cedillo.
Mr. President, I'm going to be uncharacteristically brief today. Now that brings joy to many in the audience and to my dear colleagues. I didn't realize that I was being a little extensive. Let me applaud all those who are here today, all from all the communities. It is an incredible experience that we're going through here, this democratic process where people come to lobby their elected leadership and to seek justice through a process of which we are all a part of. Even our votes today are part of this process. Let me applaud my colleagues who have brought these motions forward. They are timely and they are due. I like to say that justice, as long as it takes, is always on time. I know people have been involved in the process for 2 years, and I know that that seems like a very long time, and I understand and appreciate and respect that. And I also have a history being involved in various struggles that take their time, and they take as long as they take. And so we are here today after centuries seeking justice. And so I stand today in full support of the resolution to eliminate Columbus Day. Mr. President, I have signed your motion. I am proud to second it, and it accomplishes that. But I also stand today for unity. This is not an either-or proposition. We have goals and objectives, and we can accomplish them. We have choices to make. They're all good choices. We will leave here today, and there will be an Indigenous Peoples Day, and there will be an elimination of Columbus Day. There is no question about that. The question is, what path do we choose to get there? Do we choose a path of reconciliation and justice and unity? That is what I propose today. Let me suggest to you that at this time in our nation, there is nothing more important than these conversations, these efforts to reconcile our history and our path forward. This nation and this city needs unity, and it needs it now. We have had too many Charlottesville, Virginias, too many Phoenix, Arizonas, yes, even too many Berkeley, Californias, where divisiveness and hate and racism are too abundant throughout this nation. And so today...
No.
And so today, we are here to make a choice. The heckling and the divisiveness that we hear, the lack of respect that was just uttered, or a more disciplined, a more determined, a more challenged and nuanced way forward. That is what I'm calling for. I call for us to choose the more difficult, more challenged, the more hopeful way forward. Because when we choose reconciliation, we are choosing hope. When we look for compromise as the path forward, we are placing faith in our opponents and those who disagree with us.